This is the color of mummy from 3DMagicWorks.com. So I went to the museum the other day, a museum that housed actually some ancient Egyptian artifacts. They even had one real mummy there, supposedly a pharaoh, but it could have just been a peasant really. But it was really nice, so perhaps it was a pharaoh. But anyway, in the souvenir shop of this museum, they had a replica model of the mummy's casket, the mummy's sarcophagus, and the little tomb that he was buried in. So this is sort of the scale model. It's not obviously the real size, but it did something pretty neat, taught me an interesting lesson, which I thought I would teach you guys. First of all, I learned this symbol on the front is the ancient symbol of life in Egyptian times. This feather over here that you can see at the bottom is the feather of Mot that represented truth and order and justice and morality in ancient times. And finally in the middle is the snake, and the snake was the protector of countries and deities and pharaohs, and it's also on the side here. So again, this represents the pharaoh's little, or the mummy, well, it used to be the pharaoh, the ancient pharaoh's tomb. On the tomb, it had all of these ancient symbols. And then inside of the tomb itself is the sarcophagus. And the sarcophagus would be resting on this little table like this. And whenever you would open the lid of the sarcophagus, inside you would find the mummy of the pharaoh. And you can see it beautifully right there, wrapped in the white linens as traditional. And this whole little thing was inside of the tomb, all buried together. This obviously won't fit in there. But there was something interesting, which is the feather of Mot, and I actually have inside of here a bunch of different chips, and then I also have the feather of Mot itself. Let me turn these over. We have 6 colored chips, and let me get rid of this box. 6 colored chips and the feather of Mot, which is right there. Again, that represents morality and truth and balance. So the ancient story about the feather of Mot is that it controls whether or not someone gets into the afterlife. But you cannot say that the feather of Mot does not have at least some kind of power over Egyptian times, and at least over pharaohs. And I'll prove that in just a moment. So there's 6 colored chips. We have silver, blue, gold, purple, red, and green. I would hand these chips to the spectator, and the spectator is going to shake these chips in their hand, and they're going to dump them on the table. Whichever chips land face up, we'll keep. Whichever ones turn over face down, we'll get rid of, okay? So the spectator does this again. They shuffle, and we only got rid of one. We got rid of green, okay? But that is fine. Again, the spectator mixes them in their hand and drops them. We got rid of another one. That's silver. And we just keep going, and hopefully eventually we'll end up with just one face up. That's rid of 2, that's rid of gold and purple, which leaves us with blue and red. And again, the spectator drops these, and they just keep dropping them until eventually, oh, here we are. Now we are left with just blue, and the red is now out of the game. So that's the way that the spectator freely selects the color, and it goes into the box with the feather of Mot on top. Now, as I said, this does have an influence over the old ancient deities and pharaohs, and I can prove this by just placing this right on top of the box. Now, the old ancient wives' tale, so to speak, about this feather of Mot was that it determined whether or not someone was let into the afterlife. And the way that they did it was very simple. They would put the feather of Mot on top of the mummified pharaoh. And supposedly, whenever they got into afterlife, they would come to a crossroads. And at this crossroads, they would weigh the feather against the weight of the heart of the pharaoh. And if the heart of the pharaoh weighed more than the feather, that meant the heart was full of sin, and they would not be allowed into paradise. The heart would actually get gobbled up by a beast. But if they weighed the heart and the feather against each other, and the heart was lighter than the feather, that suggested that they were a good person, they had a good spirit, and they were let into paradise sin-free. But again, that was just an ancient wives' tale, but I certainly believe that the feather of Mot has at least some power over the deities and the mummies of the pharaohs. And in this case, we have the blue feather of Mot. And you can't say it doesn't at least affect some part of the mummy, as the mummy itself has now changed to match the exact color of the feather of Mot. That is, to me, undeniable proof that the feather of Mot is at least somewhat real, and that is the color of mummy from 3DMagicWorks.com.